Good morning, all, and welcome to our WED Talk today. My name is Brian Cummings. I'm the director here at the PA CareerLink Bucks County. Our WED Talk today is how to develop a successful apprenticeship program. I'd now like to introduce Billy Barnes, the Executive Director of the Workforce and Economic Development Board for Bucks County. Welcome, Billy.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. As Brian mentioned, my name is Billy Barnes. I'm the Executive Director of Workforce and Economic Development for the County of Bucks. Welcome to the first WED Talk of 2022. Since my department and PA CareerLink Bucks County launched this monthly employer-focused series last June, we hosted 7 webinars led by industry experts, served more than 250 businesses and employment professionals, and explored a wide variety of topics from the latest developments in COVID-19 regulations and employment law to national workforce data analysis and statewide reentry initiatives. The most popular topic of 2021, which has gained momentum due to the uncertainty caused by the ongoing pandemic, was the impact of trauma on employee retention. This WED Talk, led by Dr. Daniel Jorman from the Governor's Office of Advocacy and Reform, examined the science behind the effects of chronic trauma. Dr. Jorman cited evidence from his research and presented actionable strategies for addressing these challenges in the workplace. The new year offers the possibility of exploring more hot topics that can help you grow your business, improve workplace relations, and so much more. I hope you let the Bucks County team know what workforce topics are important to you. Watch your inbox this morning for a quick survey to list ideas for future WED Talks topics of interest. In the meantime, feel free to contact the organizer during today's WED Talk with your suggestions. Please take a moment to let us know how we can best deliver the topics important to you, combined with strategies that work. The Department of Workforce Development and the CareerLink team strive to provide our business community in Bucks County with tools they need for a successful 2022 and beyond. Thank you. Brian, kicking it back to you.
Thank you, Billy. All right, I am pleased to introduce our WED Talk presenters, Tara Lowe, Director of Apprenticeship and Training Office for the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry, and John Teketch, Executive Director of Keystone Development Partnership. Tara joined the PA Apprenticeship and Training Office for Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry in early November 2020. During her short tenure, the Apprenticeship and Training Office has already made great strides in reestablishing a strong foundation for the policy and program development of registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship across the Commonwealth. Additionally, her team focuses on apprenticeships within the state's workforce system and emphasizes equal opportunity standards and equitable selection and procedures for new and existing programs. Tara came to her position at the Department of Labor and Industry with a wealth of experience and passion for workforce program and developing targeting underrepresented populations and building partnerships for collective impact. Prior to her current role, she served as the Director of Operations at the PA CareerLink Lancaster County, where she oversaw program operations and staff, and also worked closely with the instructor team, grew youth programming, and led development of reentry services, one of the few located in the CareerLink or American Job Center. Tara has also worked in a nonprofit sector as an educator. John has served as the Executive Director of Keystone Development Partnerships since 2005, where he specializes in managing Pennsylvania industry partnership workforce development projects. John and his team provide technical assistance to employers, unions, and other organizations to develop, register, and implement registered apprenticeship programs. They bring together employers, unions, training providers, industry associations, community-based organizations, and public agencies to collaborate on initiatives that strengthen communities. John is currently working on several projects within the PA Apprenticeship and Training Office and the Department of Labor Office Apprenticeship Program in the acceleration of expansion of registered apprenticeship programs. Tara and John, welcome, and I'll kick it over to you to start our presentation today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you to all of you for allowing us to join you today to do a very basic overview of registered apprenticeship. With the limited time we have, we really only have time to scratch the surface. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about how you actually go through the building process and how you develop. We'll probably give more of a why and kind of just give you a little bit of a teaser and some basic information. If you are interested in moving forward, we'll give you some information on what that looks like. You are very lucky to have a local support system here that's very passionate about registered apprenticeship and very knowledgeable, and they will work closely with my team. And typically my team will have you attend kind of an orientation seminar to start you in the building process, and then work one-on-one with you and also your local experts if you decide to move forward and build a program. So Brian did a lovely introduction of me. So again, my name's Tara Lowe. I'm the director of the Apprenticeship and Training Office at the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry. I came directly out of the local workforce system, boots on the ground. Absolutely love what I did. And ultimately, it's really what led me to this position. I saw the benefit in registered apprenticeship and truly believe that it is the answer to many of our workforce needs, especially at this time. So the Apprenticeship and Training Office at the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry is charged with overseeing all of the policy and program development for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania related to registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship. It's important to note that Pennsylvania is what's known as a state apprenticeship agency, which essentially means our office, the Apprenticeship and Training Office, acts as an arm of the Federal Office of Apprenticeship. And we have the responsibility to oversee the Pennsylvania-specific registration process, all of the related documents, and provide support to programs, as well as hold them accountable to what they need to do. We also must ensure that prospective and existing programs have the support and resources that they need to align with Pennsylvania standards and practices, and they have the abilities to successfully register their program or connect job seekers with their registered apprenticeship. So the apprenticeship, our staff of apprenticeship and training reps remain the main providers of technical assistance to potential or already existing registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. They typically will work directly with program sponsors. So program sponsors are considered the leads of programs, and we'll get into briefly that a little bit later in the presentation. The apprenticeship and training rep service areas and service regions are broken down by the West, the North Central, and the Southeast regions, excuse me, the North, the Central, and the Southeast regions. And as you can see on this map, you kind of see what that looks like. And you essentially, all of you in your area would have your own apprenticeship and training rep supporting you. And then as I indicated earlier, you actually have the distinct pleasure of having a number of local experts and support systems. So you have a lot of support around you to build and maintain effective registered apprenticeship programs. And before we really get into it, let's play a little game, or I like to call it tested theory. So please just take a second, take a sticky note out or a piece of scrap paper, or even mentally note it if you don't have anything around you. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and please write down the first 1 or 2 things that come to mind. At the end, if we have time, we'll revisit it together. If not, I'll kind of put it on you to revisit it on your own. So question number 1. What would you say is one of the biggest barriers to workforce development for your organization or industry? What would you say is one of the biggest barriers to workforce development for your organization or industry? Please don't overthink it. Write down the first 1 or 2 things that come to mind. Just give you a second there. Number 2, what would you say is one of the biggest barriers to career development or access to training for job seekers? What would you say is one of the biggest barriers to career development or access to training for job seekers? Again, please write down the first one or two things that come to mind. And just put that off to the side, and I'll share my theory and then we'll revisit that towards the end. So I'm also going to start off on a little bit of a sour note, but I don't think that this will be a surprise to anyone in this room. The US is suffering the beginning phases of a great sansdemic. Sans meaning without, demic meaning people, or in our case, without enough people. We are essentially in a demographic drought that is projected to worsen throughout the century and undoubtedly is going to impact every business, college, and region. We're really living in a world where there are simply not enough workers to manage and grow our companies. And again, I don't think that's a surprise to anyone at this point in time. This is not a new phenomenon. This is not brought on by COVID, but the effects of COVID in 2020 certainly did act as an accelerant to this process, and the pre-existing conditions to this great sansdemic have been worsening over time. So there's a lot of research on this. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get into the details, but I do want to just kind of share the causes or some of the pre-existing conditions that led to this sansdemic. So number one, we have a mass exodus of baby boomers. So according to Pew Research Center, by the third quarter of 2021, the number of baby boomer retirees increased by over 3.2 million. Typical growth, I believe, was about 2 million per year. So that equates to 28.6 baby boomers in total out of the labor force. So essentially the largest generation in US history, remains a powerful cohort of key workers that still hold millions of roles. And their sudden departure from the labor force is going to gut the economy of crucial positions and decades of experience. Number two, we have record low labor force participation rates of prime age Americans. So essentially thousands of Americans have voluntarily opted out of looking for work. The children and the grandchildren of baby boomers are not replacing the boomers who leave the workforce. There are, again, lots of theories behind why this is happening. We just can't get into that today, but I'd be happy to talk to anyone if they're interested in finding out more. And lastly, we have one of the lowest birth rates in US history. So the national birth rate was already in decline and it hit a 35-year low in 2019. Also, the working age population has been steadily shrinking since 2008. So what does that mean? Well, it certainly means that job seekers are in the driver's seat. It also means that in this great sansdemic world, it can't just be about hiring more people. Companies really need to realize that they need to rethink their strategy, and we must recognize that people are a resource we can no longer afford to take for granted. We must take a people-centered approach to our workforce needs. So that means we need to look at our recruiting strategies differently. We need to invest in our workforces, and we need to reskill, upskill, and retain. So I'm a bit biased, but I truly believe that registered apprenticeship is that people-centered investment that employers need to make in order to address their workforce needs. As Deputy Secretary Sheila Ireland has said on more than one occasion, registered apprenticeship remains Pennsylvania's flagship model for upskilling Pennsylvanians. It helps employers close the skills gap you hear so often about. And because it's an earn as you learn model, it allows and attracts job seekers who may not have been able to invest in career development prior. So I just want to take a few minutes. You really hear the term used a lot. It's a little bit of a buzzword right now, but what I've found is that very few can actually define what a registered apprenticeship is or understand what goes in the framework. And before beginning the building process, you really need to understand that and ensure that it's the right fit for you. So what is registered apprenticeship? At the core of it, it's a way for employers to invest in their workforce and close that skills gap. Registered apprenticeship is an employer-driven, that's key. Learn while you earn, that's also key. Structured training model or framework, and it's specific to an occupation, an industry, and the actual job site and employer that it's taking part at. Registered apprenticeship programs can be anywhere from 1 to 6 years, and that would be based on the need of the employer, based on the need of the industry, the sector, and that specific occupation. And registered apprenticeship combines classroom learning or job-related technical instruction with the practical application of skills through on-the-job training. So essentially, related technical instruction and on-the-job training are key components of every registered apprenticeship program. So a huge misconception about registered apprenticeship is that apprenticeships lack customization. In reality, customization is key for registered apprenticeship, and they must be customized to the industry, to the occupation, and the employer's needs where able. But it is important to know that there are 5 key components of the structure that you must and will see in all registered apprenticeship programs. We're probably not going to be able to get into the details today, but certain industries are going to need, certain nuances in some of these key components, but we know that that key component needs to be there. And that is essentially, these components are essentially what makes the registered apprenticeship model and what makes it so successful. So number 1, it's a paid job. Apprentices are paid employees at the start of the program, and they are paid by the employer who they're going to be at long term. Number 2, on-the-job training, on-the-job learning. This is essentially hands-on structured training from a mentor at the job site. This is the practical